Welcome, foolish mortals. We haven't started an episode with a creepy intro in a long time, and there's something in this movie that kind of looked like a ghost, so I thought it was time to bring it back.
Nice. Yeah, we always try to do an intro that's related to the film. I thought you were just going to like make out with me, but
that's what I was hoping.
You went the Disney route. I should have guessed that. I would have seen that coming.
I would have done that if you were a lady. Watch the movie and you'll figure it out.
Well, today we're talking about Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Welcome to Movie Club, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the movie. Hope you've watched the movie. Yeah, welcome.
This is a Derek pick.
Derek, you say that like it's an insult.
No. I'm just. Why did you pick this movie?
It is an insult to me.
You really want to know?
I do.
Are you ready for the truth?
I think so.
I can handle the truth.
I wanted to watch a good movie. That's what it was.
Yeah.
We just watched Babylon.
Yeah, actually, I specifically wanted to watch a movie that was highly rated because you said everybody told you Babylon sucked. And I felt personally offended by that.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to find a movie that everybody says is good, and I'm going to make people watch that.
We just talked about that. I don't know who I was with, but we were talking about that here the other day. And I do want to say, I want to back myself up here.
Okay.
The purpose of Movie Club is discussion. It's not necessarily the obligation of it being a great movie. I was fascinated by how this director that everyone was in love with suddenly, like, Hollywood turned on. I was curious about that whole pathos there. So I defend my decision.
I wish you would have said that before we watched it, because then I would have gone in expecting a 3-hour slog fest.
Oh.
Because that's what it was.
Yeah, and I did, and I ended up not that bad. I was braced for it, so maybe there's something to that.
Yeah,
I was not braced.
You told me it was the guy who made La La Land, so I guess I'm the idiot. Because I expected something that was good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find a shorter movie, under 3 hours, that was highly acclaimed. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but Portrait of a Woman on Fire is like one of, if not the most highly acclaimed movie of the 2010s.
I saw that.
It came out in 2019, and it's like rave reviews across the board.
Yeah. They said it's like, it's on the list now, like 1,001 movies you should see.
They call it a modern masterpiece.
Yeah, but then there was another one where it said, top 30 films of all time or something like that. And it's like the only 2010s movie to make that list or something like that.
It was the top 100 films of all time. Okay. And this movie was ranked number 30.
Oh, that's what
But it was the highest ranked movie of the 2010s in that list.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's really crazy.
I don't know anything about, so I'll say up front, this is a movie I actually had seen before. But I don't know anything about the reception of it or anything, because I didn't go into it like, I'm hearing about this movie, I better go watch that. I was somewhere where this movie was just put on.
Oh.
And I knew nothing.
Were you like a house party or something?
That's some party.
Yeah, it was. So I kind of they kept playing Venga Boys, and I was trying to like listen to the scene, but.
Did you see it in theaters?
No, I did not see it in theaters. Someone just told me, "Yo, check this movie out," and we just watched the movie.
I almost picked this for Movie Club.
That's kind of rude, I think.
Yeah,
you can't put this movie on like, "Hey, we're having a good time." Boop, and it's like a quiet French film.
Yeah.
Okay, are we done hanging out? Should I take a nap?
The shit I had made them watch, they're
getting you back.
So they were like the same situation as this episode.
Yeah, it was basically like, all right, you're gonna watch a movie I think is cool. Okay. And then it was very quiet for a long time, but then finish the movie and I'll tell you what I thought as we go.
Yeah, I almost picked this several times myself for Movie Club.
Why were you gonna pick it?
I thought the cover looked fucking cool. And I knew I thought it was nominated for Academy Award. I don't know if it was.
Maybe I don't know.
I was looking through all the nominees, and like, I don't think it made it, but I thought that's where I saw it from. But I just thought the cover looked fucking cool. It's like, what is this? And that was it. So, I didn't know anything else about it.
I like artsy fartsy films. I expected this movie to be a lot more rambunctious, a lot more avant-garde. I think, I'll say it. I expected this movie to be way cooler. With its style, because I had heard so much. And the trailer makes it look kind of strange and kind of bizarre.
Huh, wow. I never saw the trailer for it. That's interesting.
I had seen the trailer back in 2019 and always been interested in seeing this movie because it looked so interesting. I was surprised when the movie started that it was just a straightforward period piece. Kind of a very quiet film and
Very quiet.
kind of slow and kind of subtle. But I think that this is a perfect example of a movie that is a slow burn. I think it's
Yes.
the ultimate example of a slow burn.
I agree.
Completely agree with you.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about the film now that we've all seen it?
Well, I first off, when that started and I saw the artist, I'm like, why is she so fucking familiar? I could not figure out what it was about her. And then I realized, I looked up, like, oh, she's in Tar.
Yeah.
We
And
just
I-
watched the
Yep.
movie with
Yeah,
her.
I was like, oh, I've never seen this girl before in my life, and now I'm seeing her twice in like a couple weeks.
That was
apart.
me during Tar. I was like, whoa, oh, the artist, though, she's there.
Oh, interesting.
Good for. I mean, what a career so far.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's made any other movies,
Hitting
but
the bangers.
two
I looked
critically
it up because I
acclaimed
was
films.
curious, and yeah, it was like nothing.
I think she's doing Ant-Man 4 coming up, so that'll be cool.
Is she really?
No,
I was like, what the fuck?
That's believable because that's what Marvel does. They
All
take
right.
somebody. Hey, Idris Elba is universally loved for serious films. Let's put him in a spandex suit and shoot lasers at him.
Not to divert too much, but I've been cracking up at they had already signed up the Daniels, the directors that won Best Director this year for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Right.
Had already been signed up for a bunch of episodes of Marvel's next the next Star Wars streaming show. I think
thank
it's called
God.
Skeleton Crew.
That's gonna make it good.
That's their next thing. Is they're
man.
doing multiple
Whoa.
episodes of that. I'm like, yep, Oscar winner, Best Director.
Yeah, let's send them to the most played out film franchise in history. See if they can breathe some life into it.
Not to divert from this into Star Wars, but I finally was like, all right, I'll watch season 3 Mandalorian. Got through 20 minutes. I fell asleep so hard. So boring to me. Couldn't hang.
I look, see this? I got it right here. You can't even see it on camera. I got a Star Wars tattoo right here. Got it when I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Grew up loving Star Wars. You couldn't pay me to watch the new Star Wars content. I'm so mentally checked out. It just feels like, you're cranking out 30 hours of content a year of this shit.
Yeah, too much stuff.
Yeah, the swords light up. Wow, cool.
Too much
Awesome.
bad stuff. It's like
Too much bad
AMPM's.
stuff.
Okay, it doesn't matter. But back to
I'm
this.
watching all of it, enjoyed all of it.
There
Yeah,
you
but
go.
where's your tattoo?
That's a great question.
Never.
Where's your Star Wars tattoo?
Never.
No, but I have enough fucking lightsabers that I found my own way to be pathetic.
Oh my. He's calling you pathetic.
No,
Jared.
not that your tattoo's pathetic.
Oh my god.
But I'm just saying,
My tattoo is
I
pathetic.
find my own. I find my own.
My tattoo looks like it was drawn on me with a.
But that's why I like it. If it was like,
arguably the worst tattoo of all time.
okay, I will say if your tattoo was a legitimately beautiful Rebel Alliance tattoo, I wouldn't like it.
It'd
Nearly
be
as
very
much.
dorky.
I wouldn't like it
but
as much.
the fact that it's I prefer that it's a Rebel Alliance tattoo that looks like a 3-year-old drew
Yes.
on me with a pen.
Yes.
Because the tattoo artist was unlicensed and inexperienced, and we did it in the bedroom of my first apartment.
What he said to you when it was done is probably, I think about it more than you would ever
yeah,
believe.
what was that?
I think it.
Well, the outline kept wiping off. We kept having to reapply it. So when the tattoo was finally done, he went, I think that's as good as we're gonna get. And I was like, that's my first tattoo
I
ever.
think about that all the time. That's as good as we're gonna get.
But he
That's
meant
so
that
funny.
as this is the greatest tattoo of all time. Like literally, this is as good as it's going to get.
Oh, I
Like,
thought it
you
was like,
can't top
oh,
this
this is as
tattoo.
good as it's gonna get.
No, it was you can't top this one. That's how I've gone on to reinterpret it. Anyways, enough about Star Wars.
Well, let me just actually let me just bridge the gap back to this movie though.
Good.
I will say this. I'll just speak for myself. There's things I watch with different brains, you know, and in the same way you guys might watch you know a stupid reality show or you know whatever that you know the kind of stuff they have on Netflix. I think that part of my brain is the one that watches the Star Wars streaming show. You know what I mean? I don't really watch reality TV, but I have like junk food brain, and it's like the 7th grade part of myself is like eats it and it tastes good, but then I just kind of move on. You know, I don't really think about it too much after. And then you have a movie like this that feeds that other part of my brain that is starved, where it's like, oh, they're doing something kind of interesting here, you know. And if that makes sense, if that gives any context.
Yeah, for me, my backlash is that they present Star Wars movies as if they're like high art. And They spend exorbitant amounts of money and cast like the greatest actors in the world, and then they advertise it like it's a masterpiece, and then you're like, yeah, I don't know, it's fucking boring and stupid. Like you said, it's kind of like trash TV. It's like the equivalent of reality TV, quality wise.
Yeah, it's junk food to me, and I'm not getting any new ideas out of it. But I love like fucking creatures and robots. You know what I mean? Like that part of me is like, yeah.
Every once in a while, there's a good one, Marvel movie or high budget.
Yeah.
I mean, these are like kids' movies. I consider them children's movies.
I consider those streaming shows I consider children's TV as well.
Yeah.
So I don't, you know what I mean? I don't get that worked up over it. I'm like, oh, it was cute.
Every once in a while, there's a good one.
I will say, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no,
I will say that though, we watched a lot of movies, and I've had dreams about the movies that we've watched 2 times. For this movie, I dreamt like all last night. I just finished last night, but I dreamt about this movie the entire night. Yeah. And then the same with the platform. Those two, like those kind of movies.
The last 2 Derek picks.
I know.
I think I'm getting in your brain.
You are. But those are the last 2 that like.
What was your dream about the platform?
He was at the top.
I'm just pissing down below. No, it was like, I don't even know. It's just like, I don't even remember. I just remember it was about the platform. And this movie I don't remember either. I was just there. I was just seeing this again. Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah.
Oh, so I'll tell you. Anyway, let me just say about this movie real quick. Going back to Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Didn't know anything about it, so this started to tickle me in that way that I'm kind of like, yeah, this is like kind of quiet and it's luring me in a little bit. And I did realize while watching this, I am a fan of the slow burn, quiet ass movie. There's something about it. If you can maintain that, you know what I mean? That balance. You could easily tip into like, all right, I'm fucking losing interest. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's easy to fuck that up. If you can maintain that kind of, I don't know if tension is the right word, but keep it interesting while keeping it, like it you don't have to be saying shit every 2 seconds, I watched this and I watched, I think it was Drive My Car kind of back to back. And it was just like, oh, give me more of this shit. So anyway, I discovered a genre that I do enjoy. I have my things, I'm not saying I necessarily love the movie. I'm not going to give you my final shakers here, but I did enjoy that. I also want to say on the technical side, I was fascinated when this movie started because, I always talk about the production side of shit that I enjoy or whatever. A lot of period pieces like this, I find they usually try to use film, or give it that kind of older, more classic look, grainy look. And I was curious watching this. I think I watched it on Hulu. It was so crisp. It was like the most crisp. I think it was in 4K or whatever, and it was the crispest movie I'd ever seen. I'm like, they shot this digitally. That's interesting. But they didn't even attempt to put a thing over it where it looked old-timey or anything, And turns out they shot this movie in 8K. Whoa. They wanted it to be the crispest image possible, which I just thought was interesting. You don't normally see that in a period piece, but they wanted to achieve a different look.
Huh.
And I just thought that was interesting. Anyway.
It did have a different look. It honestly, we just watched Banshees of Inisherin, and it reminded me kind of that a little bit. Maybe because it's always by the ocean and it's a very quiet movie. And, but I got the same vibe with this movie. I don't know.
Water vibes.
What's that vibe?
I don't know. It was just like, it basically centers around 2 or 3 people. In this
kind of stuck away from society.
It's a one-off little story about this, and there's not much more going on than like this little, and it was very similar to me, like the girl version of that.
Little secluded story.
Yeah,
they're away from society.
Yeah.
And in that movie, it's like they don't have any of society's bigger worries to come down on them, and here they don't have to worry about fucking men. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or do they? Or do they? Maybe they do. Maybe that's what the whole movie's about, actually. Yeah. So when the movie started, I pretty much went in cold. I had heard that this was a I had heard that this was a queer love story, but the premise is about a woman who is hired as a painter to paint another woman who refuses to be painted. And so this woman will not sit down and pose for a painting. This takes place in the 1700s. And so she needs to kind of pretend to befriend her so that she can observe her for her painting. And that's pretty much all I knew going in. When the movie started, I was pretty much immediately struck by the lack of music in the movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which at first, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's a very distinct choice not to use music in this movie because they set it up for a musical punch. It's like it starts in like a painting class. Oh, everybody's painting. They're learning about art and this and that. And then they're like, what's that painting back there? And they uncover it. And it's a woman who is like on fire. And it's like, oh, I painted that. And it's like, what do you call it? We're like 30 seconds of the movie. And it pushes up on the main character, Miriam. And I call it Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And I was ready for the title, you know. But they didn't do that.
No.
Excuse me. You got boogies.
Oh my goodness.
Pardon me. I'll be all right. And then she basically goes on to tell the story of how this painting came to be, which I find interesting because you actually never see her painting it.
I thought that too. I was ready for her to like that be the painting, and it wasn't. I was like, oh, she's okay.
Yeah. It cuts to we go back into a little bit in the past, and we get the story of Miriam and how she gets this job painting this other woman. And it cuts to her on a boat, and she's being rowed towards, I'm assuming, I would say, I don't know if it's an island or not, but she's being rowed towards a beach. It looks like she's coming in from like the ocean. Like heavy water. And I don't know, there's maybe like 8 men rowing this boat. These are the only men in the movie with pretty much.
Yeah, there's like
with a couple exceptions.
But very quickly.
There's a couple men at the end of the movie. There's like one guy in the middle of it, but pretty much, you know, she's on this boat with these guys and she has these painting tools and they fall into the ocean and she like looks at it sailing away and all the guys are just kind of like watching the tools go away. And she has to like jump into the ocean and go after the painting stuff by herself and rescue it. And then she's dropped off on the beach and you never see these guys again. And I feel like there's this implied message of, in this world, men are totally checked out. They're totally useless to the circumstances that these characters are going to find themselves in. They offer no help, no guidance, and no assistance. Which I thought was interesting. I think as the movie goes on, hey, the message of this movie is being a woman sucks sometimes. In the world,
you're left with a mess.
In a world dominated by men, especially 17th, 18th century France, the 1740s or whatever it is, you know, women do not have very much control over their lives and what happens to them. Which is a theme all throughout history. But I feel like that is kind of one half of what this movie explores, and then the other half being love and the power of love to have a lasting effect on you, even if you were in love for just a short amount of time.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think about the opening of the movie?
You know, I was really unsure. I didn't even, to be real with you, didn't know this movie was even French. I knew like nothing. And I don't know. I immediately was struck by how beautiful every shot looked. Again, like Banshees of Inisherin, I compared it before, but it's like every still is like a picture, you know, which is, you know, this is the whole thing is about art. This is a very artistic movie, so obviously the cinematography is going to be beautiful. But yeah, I don't know. At first I wasn't sure what I thought of this movie, to be real with you. I was like, I don't know what is happening. I don't know what this is. Like, I wasn't all the way on board, I would say, within the first like 20 minutes as you were describing. For me. I don't know about you, Rocco.
No, I mean, I was like you mentioned a minute ago, I was particularly struck by the lack of music, and I was like, oh, this is that kind of movie. This movie's just going to let me sit with this, and so I was fascinated and Yeah, it was hooking me in. So I was in. I was in.
Nice. Miriam goes to this house where she is basically there's 3 other women who live in this house. A woman named Heloise, she's a main character, but we haven't met her yet. Instead, we first meet her mother. And beforehand, we meet this kind of like maid servant girl whose name I don't know.
Sophie.
It's Sophie. Okay. They don't really say names in this movie. I didn't even know the main character's name was Miriam. And
Yeah,
so I had to like look up a review of the movie
I was going to
afterwards.
say the same thing. Yeah.
They don't really name the characters. But that's okay. Sophie kind of explains to Miriam, the painter. She's like, "Oh, you're a painter?" Yeah. She's like, "Okay. Do you think you could do it?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Paint a picture of Heloise." And it's like, yeah. And it's like, because the last painter who was here failed to do it. And they kind of set up this mystery of why did the painter fail to do it. And they give this story of how Heloise is engaged to marry a man who lives far away. He lives in Milan. But originally she had a sister who was engaged to this man, but the sister died. And nobody really wants to talk about how or why the sister died. So again, they're like building this mystery. And then Miriam is talking with the mother, who tells her, basically lays out the hook of this movie. Heloise refuses to sit for a painting, so I want you to pretend to be a companion, and I want you to observe her so that you can paint a picture of her. I found it really interesting, this system of marriage from 1700s in France, where this is kind of like a aristocratic rich family, so they are trying to get her married to another aristocratic rich family, but the guy lives in Italy. I think that's where Milan is. Yeah, Italy. And obviously they have never met each other. He doesn't know what his potential bride is going to look like. So you need to paint a painting of this woman and mail it to the guy so that he could be like, okay, yeah, I'll marry her.
Yeah, which is so wild. And I have never considered that. I've never considered that. We're so fucking spoiled today with like how to easily get a picture to someone across the world. It can take 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I remember you a while ago. You were talking about you've probably seen more boobs than any of your ancestors. I mean, ever, relatives, ancestors before you.
Yeah.
That's
that's
scientifically
that's true. But that
has to be
has
accurate.
nothing to do with pictures. I'm just a popular guy.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
Let's keep it to the movie.
Okay, sure.
Not my personal life.
Right. Sorry.
But yeah, like, for me watching the beginning of this movie, I was just kind of getting absorbed into the world of, they don't have music.
Yeah.
They don't have photographs. They don't have any of the technical creature comforts that we have in the modern day. That, to me, was what the most striking thing was about the beginning of this movie, is how much life actually sucked back in the 1740s. There was nothing to do. You have like fucking wooden chairs and candles.
Yeah,
That's
honestly.
fucking it.
And they're
That's-
the rich house.
Yes, these are the wealthiest people in
They
society.
didn't even have TikTok.
Yeah, they got nothing.
And they don't have friends either. They're isolated. There's really like nothing to do. It kind of just paints this bleak picture of what life was like. And then, it was clear to me, obviously, that Heloise does not want to get married and does not want the painting to be created. And in her mind, if the painting is not created, that will stop the marriage from happening.
Right.
They start to, Miriam starts to investigate what happened to the sister, and it's pretty much implied that she took herself out, that she went to the cliffs and jumped off of them because she didn't want to get married. So very like sad, tragic story. And I actually liked how they don't come out and outright say that, but they leave you as the viewer to just pick up on the implications and put the pieces together.
Yeah.
A lot of this movie is you, the viewer, have to pick up on the implications,
Yeah.
as the characters also have to pick up on implications. So it's very much like you're living in the experience with them, which I love in a movie.
And I was just gonna say, and that's all enhanced to me by the lack of music and things like
Yeah.
that. There, As I get older, I feel like I more and more appreciate movies that just let you exist in that place and put you in their shoes.
I honestly feel that the choice of that was so smart because music gives the audience a cue of what's happening.
Yeah.
Like you can feel like, oh, they're gonna hook up because the music's like building to something. You
Yeah.
can feel it, you know?
Yeah.
But when it's nothing and it's just the waves crashing, you don't know what's gonna happen next. And I really did like that choice.
And to bring it back to Star Wars, something like that's melodrama. Yeah, you want the sweeping romantic musical cue, but this is like achieving something totally different.
When
That's
she's
great.
running toward the cliff and there's no music, I don't know what she's gonna do.
Yeah,
I don't know if she's gonna jump off.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, they use music strategically in this movie. I think they use
Yeah.
it 3 times.
Yeah.
So very sparingly and very it's. I think it might be one of the most effective uses of music in recent memory in a film. Where a lot of people, and we're filmmakers too, and oftentimes we will watch a scene and be like, yeah, this is good, but it could use some music,
Right.
because music kind of just speeds things along.
Yeah.
It kind of, for your ADHD brain, it kind of like distracts you from how boring things may actually be. To purposely go into a movie knowing like we're not going to use music here, it's pretty ballsy. You're saying this movie is going to sustain people's attention just with the actors in a quiet scene for like over an hour at a time. We're not going to use any tricks to spice this up and make it more than what it is.
Yeah.
We're just going to present it as in a very realistic lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. I remember, I was just going to say, I remember.
Another Star Wars thing?
No, but just as much of a tangent. But I remember Christopher Nolan talking about when he edits his movies. He's like, I always try to edit it without the music in because I just feel like it's got to rule before you can't like lean on that. You got to like let it kick ass before you add that. And then you could decide that, whatever. And I always thought that was interesting because I know a lot of people who do the opposite. It's like they lean on the music to let that carry it, let that just interesting.
I just heard an interview with Quentin Tarantino who said that he sometimes won't even have the idea for a movie until he hears a song, goes, oh, and he can picture everything and just knows how it's going to go.
Yeah. It's just
It's a
interesting
different method,
hearing how people treat music in the process of,
Yeah. In my opinion, movies, and I love movies, and they are a marriage of multiple different art forms.
Yeah.
You have the art of theater in just acting and performing mixed with the art of photography, because when you're watching actors on a stage, that's cool. But when you have a camera and you can control the camera placement and control the perspective of the viewer, now you're looking through the lens of a photographer. And then, as Babylon explained, later on, sound was introduced. So sound wasn't even originally a part of the art of filmmaking. It's like, I was going to say the latest edition, but it's not, because now we have computer generated graphics. So special effects have always been a part of it, but computers are the latest edition. But I like that this movie was kind of a return to basics, because so many people just take modern day movies for granted as this is what a movie is. It's all of these things thrown together. And this movie kind of deconstructs that and says like, well, no, you can sustain a movie by selectively removing some of these elements. Maybe that'll make it more interesting.
Yeah.
But I digress. Anyways, so Miriam has to go on walks with Heloise. And what's really interesting is she finds the previous painter's work and the face is like not painted in it. So he painted the full body. We later come to see that often it's a technique to use a stand-in. So maybe the painter used somebody else as the body. And
Probably Sophie.
Yeah, and was waiting for Heloise to pose so he could do the face. But they really make it a mystery of what this woman looks like. You don't see her face. You hear about like nobody's allowed to look at her, nobody can paint her, and then we find the painting and the face is missing. And it's kind of played a little bit creepy as well.
I was gonna say, I again, just to reiterate, I literally went into this movie with no information, so I didn't know like, are we gonna do some sci-fi shit, or is this gonna be like a fucking
because you hadn't seen
you know
her
what I
yet.
mean? Like they're gonna be an like Twilight Zone, Eye of the Beholder kind of thing. I didn't know. And I was disappointed.
Yeah, they've played it. Yeah, very disappointing. Now we know that like the sister has mysteriously died, and we can't see this character's face. And when she finally goes for a walk with Heloise for the first time, she approaches her from behind, and Heloise starts walking without
With
acknowledging
a
her.
cloak on. You
Yeah,
can't see
so
anything.
Yeah.
we're just doing this tracking shot while we're looking at the back of her head, and it just has this very like alluring, haunting effect.
Yeah.
As you mentioned in this scene, we already know that her sister threw herself off the cliffs, and then Heloise starts running towards the cliffs. And yeah, you're thinking like, is she gonna toss herself over?
Is she gonna do the same thing? Like, what is happening?
Is she so over life that she's gonna end it all? But she stopped short of doing that. And when Miriam catches up with her, Heloise says, "I've always dreamed of doing that." And she goes, what did she say? Dying?
Yeah.
She asks her, like, you dreamed of dying? And she goes, no, running. Which to me, like, kind of sealed it. Like, now I fully understand the world that Heloise is in. Like, it's so controlled. She has so little control over her own life. I mean, I took that as like a true statement. Like, you've never run before.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's allowed you to run.
She was in a covenant before this, which I'm sure her parents put her in. And so, yeah, and they only pulled her out to marry this guy. So I don't think she has ever had a choice to do that.
No, acting out of any kind was just not,
Yeah, and the reference of the covenant could also be how not only do guys dominate women in this society, but religion also kind of dominates everybody. So it's all about like, deciding for yourself and having control over your own actions is this huge, huge desire for the characters in this movie. They just want to be able to choose their own way in life. And this movie is a tragic film because you kind of see like, well, can they even will they achieve that goal? Will they be able to choose for themselves what happens?
Right.
And the answer is kind of yes, kind of no. But so they start going on walks, and Miriam, we know that she has this goal, this secret goal of painting Heloise, so she keeps like glancing at her. And this movie is just filled with longing glances.
So many. And I honestly, like, it's funny because once I realized where this movie was going and they were going to, get together, I was like, well, Heloise, I think, would of course think that Miriam was into her because she's always just staring at her face. Like, it's like, is she checking me out? Like, what? Like, she just keeps staring at her for such long times. It's like, why is she looking at me like this? I think you would have to naturally come to that conclusion if you were her, not knowing that you're going to be painted by her.
Yeah, and I was reading a review of this movie, and something interesting they said is like, as the observer of somebody, it's not a one-way relationship. When you look at somebody and you observe them, they look back at you and they observe you. And it's this, I think that is a fair statement in life. So many times people think that they can just watch and observe something, not realizing that they themselves are being observed too. How many times do we go in life thinking like, yeah, I was there, but nobody noticed me.
Right.
Nobody cared that I was there. You kind of absorb everything through your own experience, but you fail to realize like, yeah, no, people are paying attention to you. Even if you think they're not. I mean, you're there, you're present, and that presence calls attention to itself, even if you're not trying. So I like that as a theme of this movie. Is kind of a really interesting notion to make a movie about. So Miriam starts her painting, and I don't know. What do you think of the painting? The first version.
The first one?
I thought the first version. I liked how the first version of the painting was like kind of accurate, but also, in my opinion, was not super accurate.
Yeah. I was honestly going to say real quick, I'm really impressed by just the paintings in general because they were all hand painted.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that there was an artist on set who was working like 16 hours a day just painting nonstop.
Holy shit.
But yeah, it was a great, because it definitely was her, but it also was not. And so it was a very, I think the artist did a great job. Whoever the artist was, I think I have the notes somewhere, but I thought it was like the perfect first one.
Yeah,
Thomas Kincaid.
No, it was not.
No.
I'm no great artist. I'm not a great painter. So when I saw the painting, I was like, it's pretty good. But at the same time,
that's what I thought.
same time, it was like, well, you've watched Heloise along with Miriam throughout this movie, and she always gives very fierce looks. She's a very like stoic, brooding personality type. And the painting is just kind of like,
Yeah.
it's just like meh, sitting there. So I was struck by like, the painting is a little bit underwhelming. If this movie is called Portrait of a Woman on Fire, this ain't the portrait.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that the movie it takes place over a short amount of time. All told, it's probably 11 days. But for the first half of the movie, Miriam is only there for 6 days. So not even a full week. She has 6 days to make this painting. And while she's there, she talks with everybody. And she talks with Sophie, the maid, and finds out that Sophie has missed her period for 3 months in a row. So she's probably pregnant. But we never see like who she's pregnant by, or
nothing about that.
They don't.
That's never even asked. It's not even addressed.
They don't even say you're pregnant. It's just you missed your period. You missed your what do they call it? Like I don't know, something like my
monthlies.
Yeah, my monthlies. Yeah, which I know what that is because.
Yeah, I figured. I googled it. And
yeah, we googled it. Figured.
I got
What were the
answer.
monthlies in Portugal? Like,
Oh, yikes!
And again, this it still reinforces this idea of this guy, whoever got Sophie pregnant, is not even present in her life, and yet her whole life is about to be changed.
Yeah.
By these events and
Looming presence, even when they're not there.
yeah. So they start this like subplot of trying to have an abortion for this baby, and it's very like. I think they're like trying to force her to have a miscarriage by making her like run like laps and like physically exert herself to the point where it would cause her to lose her child.
Yeah.
Same with like drinking like weird weeds or some broth that they make out of plants.
Yeah, they're giving her like herbal medicines and like hanging from the raft, doing some like physical 100 shit.
Yeah.
Having like hang from the rafters of the house and stuff.
They did all this shit in a Degrassi episode too, and it didn't work there either.
They did?
Yeah.
Maybe the director is a big Degrassi fan.
Accidents Will Happen, Part 1. I think it was season 3. So check that out. Companion piece to this.
Okay.
After you watch Mandalorian, watch Degrassi, and then you
The trifecta.
fully appreciate this movie.
That will make you want to keep the baby because the little creature's so cute. But Degrassi, nah. Here's how to get rid of it. Anyway.
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking about Degrassi.
It's hard. I do
can't get
that too.
Degrassi plot points out of my brain now.
Yeah.
So then the mom or the countess leaves. And then I feel like the movie completely changes when she's gone. Once that presence is gone.
Yeah.
But you never see her husband.
Well, I was going to say.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
She finishes the painting.
Oh, right.
She finishes the painting, and she's only been there for 6 days, and her mom is very pleased. She's like, "Can I see the painting?" She goes, "Well, I'd like to show it to Heloise first and tell her what I've been doing. I want to be honest about this." Which I think is respectable. And she does. She tells Heloise what's going on, and she shows her the painting, and Heloise kind of eviscerates her and tells her the painting sucks. But she doesn't say, it's not like she's angry.
No.
Because the painting got made. It's more like she's angry because Miriam, who has spent all this time with her, observing her, failed to capture her true essence.
Which is what she said. She's like, this is how you see me. Like, she's like asking that question. She doesn't say like, this painting sucks, but she does, just by being like, that's not who I am.
Yeah. And I liked Miriam's response because it was like, well, it's not just me. There's like artistic conventions. There's there's a whole school of thought with composition and color. And you texting over there? You on Twitter over there? You tweeting about this movie?
No.
Come on, bro. Are you Googling opinions on this film? She tells her there's like a school of thought about this, but Miriam kind of says like, fuck the school of thought. Like you didn't like, what does that matter if this painting doesn't capture my true essence? You're just making me look. You're trying to put me into a box, essentially, which again is the one thing that she doesn't want in this movie. She doesn't want to be just like compartmentalized as like, yep, just another bride.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really powerful. And she kind of leaves. And then Miriam gets offended, or
I think she
I don't know
realized
if
that
she's offended, but she's like called out.
I think she knows that Eloise is right. Like
Yeah.
she knows like I didn't do this right.
So she like ruins the painting. She scrubs the face off of it. And Heloise's mom comes in to see the painting finally and is like, what's this? And she's like, well, the painting wasn't good enough. And her mom tries to fire her. She's like, well, then you're incompetent and you should leave. And she offers like, well, no, I'll do a better painting. I'll get it right. And she's like, no. But then Heloise, in a huge twist, says, let her stay and I will pose for her, which is like this breakthrough moment. Kind of the turning point in the film.
Yeah.
What do you think about this part of the movie?
This whole time I'm thinking like I had seen up to this point multiple how do I say this? I had been shown multiple movies by the same person, and in all of them the punchline was they ended up being gay. And so I'm like, okay, I think we're heading in this I think, you know what I mean? This is that kind of yeah.
Was your friend trying to tell you something?
Yes. I
The
think so.
punchline.
No, but I knew it was going. I was like, okay, yeah. I think I can totally see where this is going. And it was only better for it, but yeah, I was putting two and two together during
Yeah. I went into this movie knowing that it was a love story.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I didn't know that, but I was, yeah.
Yeah, then the fact that there's no guys in this movie, it's like, well, I wonder who's gonna fall in love. You tell me. Yeah. But I think it's more than just a love story. It's like I don't think that it really matters that it's two women who fall in love, or I really feel like this is a universal story about wanting to be with somebody and you can't be with them. And I think that is something that everybody can relate to. Whether you had a relationship that ended and you weren't ready for it to end and you wished you could still be with them, or, you know, a lot of people, hey, I used to do Heart Slayers, like a relationship and dating podcast here in this studio. And I can't tell you how many people called in with, I'm in love with my best friend's girlfriend or boy, like so many people.
Yeah, that was a lot, wasn't it?
So many people. There's just something about not being allowed to be in the relationship that makes you obsess about it and really lets it get under your skin. As a powerful notion there. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. But yeah. So this was kind of like the turning point in the movie. This is like the halfway point. It's like the most dramatic part. Heloise's mother has to leave for 5 days. So she says, okay, I'm going to be gone for 5 days. When I come back, the painting will be done. No questions asked. And she takes off. And now we start to see the relationship really start to blossom because everything's out on the table now. No more secrets, right? You're a painter. I'm your subject. Let's do this. So they start to paint each other and they start to hang out more. And Heloise talks a little bit about how she still likes to go to church because it's the only time she gets to get out of the house, really. And she gets to hear music because the people sing at church or the convent. And they kind of acknowledge the lack of music in this film and the lack of music in this world. And then Miriam like busts out an awesome piano
Yeah, where'd
solo.
that thing come from?
Miriam is such a talented person. And I also found it interesting how she says that as a painter, she's not allowed to paint. They asked her, do you ever do nude people? She says, yeah, but only women.
Right.
And she's like, why? You can't paint nude men. She's like, no, I'm not allowed to. They won't let me paint nude men. And she's like, do you think it's because it's indecent? And she says, no, it's because they don't want me to create great art. And if I'm never allowed to study the male anatomy, I'll never have the full techniques and knowledge to create great art. So basically, they're afraid of me and they're trying to hold me back. And so she has to paint her nude male artists in secrecy back at home, in whatever place she's from. I don't know, Paris or whatever.
They never say. I don't think.
They never say. Yeah. But getting back to the music, she plays the piano, and it's the first use of music in this movie. And she plays a rad song. I really liked it.
Summer in Vivaldi's Four Seasons.
Oh, yeah. Classic Four Seasons.
Classic Vivaldi. It's not, she says, like, is it a happy song? And she's like, it's an upbeat song, you know, but it's not necessarily a happy song. A lot happens in it. It's about a storm that's coming and a storm that rages. And she plays the song, and now she is the one who's being observed because Heloise kind of just is looking at her and smiling at her. And you can kind of see how these two people just, I love that this is a love story that is not gushy, mushy, overtly expressive. It is literally just admiring the other person. It's just admiring them in their natural state.
Yeah, I think there's something, I don't know how to word this very well, so I apologize. I'm always affected by relationships in movies that are like that, where it's super easy to make it super romantic, sweeping. You know what I mean? Kind of like
you're trying to force feed the audience the internal emotions of the characters. Yeah,
and I find myself more affected by like it's like something organically out of like I don't know how to word that, like respect or it's like something more. It just feels more real, I think, when it's like.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No. Rather than I've been waiting my whole life for you and da 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 da. Without all this kind of like lore behind it, it's kind of like it just is what it is. I don't know how to word exactly what I'm trying to say here.
There's something that they do in movies of like the overcome kiss, like someone's talking and the person just can't resist anymore and they have to kiss them ever.
Yeah.
And this movie does not do that. It just like takes such time. You keep thinking like, okay, now they're gonna kiss.
Yeah.
And then they don't. And then the next thing's like, okay, well now they're gonna kiss. And then they don't. It's like, oh my God, like, can you do this? Like, because you want it so bad for them that like I felt like it was everything happened naturally.
Yeah, I personally never even expected them to kiss. I thought that this was going to be a movie of longing and I thought that they were going to just
never make it,
fall in love with each other silently and but we never made anything happen. Because it did take so long. They do eventually kiss, and but it came like well into the second half of the movie, like 3/4 of the way into the movie.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like there's almost like more power in it, just not this great sweeping build up to it happening, but rather it's like it already exists. Do you know what I mean? It's like this was already here, and it's just a question of like when they're gonna kiss, but it's not some should I? It's just it was already there. This was already going to happen because I don't know. The way that they do it, I just think is I get more out of it that way.
Getting back to how much life sucks for the women in this movie. There's no music unless you learn how to play piano yourself or go to church. And another element, there's really no entertainment at all. And Heloise, when Miriam shows up from the city far away, she asks, "Did you bring any books?" And she's like, "Yeah, I brought a book." She's like, "Give it to me." Because you can't even get a fucking book in this world.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they are reading from the book, and it's a Greek mythology book. And it's a story that we all know. We're taught this story in school. I often forget the names of the characters in the story. I think it's Orpheus and Eurydice.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Orpheus and Eurydice. The story of the girl who dies and goes down to Hades. And Orpheus, her husband, goes to the underworld and begs for her to be given life again. And the god of the underworld, Hades, makes a deal with him and says, if you leave now and walk out of here, Eurydice will follow you back into the real world. but you have to make sure that you never look back. You have to trust this deal. And if you doubt it once, if you look back, all will be lost. And we know this story. Orpheus walks out of Hades, but before Eurydice is able to cross the threshold out of Hades as well, he turns around and looks back at her, and the deal is broken because she's not out of Hades yet, and she descends backwards back into Hades, never to be seen again. Super famous story from Greek mythology, ancient history, and it's always been a question for philosophers, because I've read about this story many times. The question is, why does Orpheus turn around? Why? Even as a kid,
Yeah.
I remember
Well,
learning.
yeah, it's one of those things like, why did you do it?
Yeah, even as a kid, I'm like, you fucked up. You had what you wanted and you fucked it up. Why did you do that? I have heard philosophers argue that this story is an analogy of the human tendency for self-sabotage. When all the hard work is done, when you're 3/4 of the way there, you just, for whatever reason, you just fuck it up. You just screw yourself. You just can't take the thing to completion. Why? Why? Because you have self-doubt? Because you have self-sabotaging tendencies? That's the question. Why does Orpheus turn around before the job is done? And they explore that question in this movie too. They're reading the story and they're like, why did he turn around? They offer a different interpretation of the story. Miriam says maybe he chose to turn around on purpose. Maybe he wanted the thought of this relationship more than the actual relationship. Maybe he would prefer the memory of Eurydice than the actual relationship itself.
Yeah.
I feel like this is maybe the most important scene of the movie.
I think it is. It is.
What are your takes on this part of the film?
Well, I think what you're saying is right. Like they're trying to dissect it. Maybe she wanted this to happen. Maybe she didn't want to go back with him, or But I do think the idea of like, because they later reference when Miriam is drawing a little like locket of Heloise to keep like her own little personal picture.
Much later in the film, yeah.
She's like, I'm just going to be a memory. But that's the same kind of thing as this, where it's like you just want that memory of me pretty soon is going to be that picture. You're going to figure out what I actually look like. I'm just going to become this picture that you're drawing. And that's the same thing as what this story is, I think.
Yeah. And I think, too, they're trying to play up the theme we've already said, that sometimes the idea of a relationship that you can't have is more powerful than the actual relationship itself.
Yeah.
And, anybody out there who's been in a relationship can maybe relate to that, too. Like, being in a real relationship is fucking hard work. Like, there's ups and downs. It's not just like sunshine and lollipops.
Right.
But when you're fantasizing about a relationship, it is just sunshine and lollipops. The fantasy is so much better than the reality, often.
Also, they call it the honeymoon phase of a relationship because this is 5 days is the best. Like everything's new and exciting and like, are they going to hold my hand? Are they not? It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Falling in love is really the fun part of the relationship.
Yeah. And so that's what we see here. We see the best part of it.
Yeah. What about you?
I was going to say, I almost wonder if she's too, like we talked about the theme going through this of like men's kind of like fucking evil presence looming in the background of everything. And I almost wonder if like she's too saturated by that to let this be like a something that exists beyond a memory. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's just solidified this way, that it's just like, well, she's too corrupted to let it even go beyond that. I don't know.
Who's
feel
corrupted?
Like
The painter?
Yeah.
Eloise?
Yeah, Eloise. Sorry. I get their fucking names mixed up. I don't know anybody's names, but yeah, Marion's a teacher. Eloise. That maybe it's like, it can't go past that, or I don't know. Yeah, that's just I don't know. That maybe that's still kind of saturating everything.
Yeah, it's interesting because when Heloise says to her mom, like, I will sit for the painting, she knows when this painting is completed, I'm going to be forced to have this marriage that I don't want to have. Earlier in the movie, too, they talk about her sister dying, and she's like, do you think your sister wanted to die? And she's like, well, she apologized to me in a letter before she did herself in.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you think she apologized for? And she says, well, she probably knew that I was going to have to take her place in this wedding.
Yeah.
Eloise really doesn't want to do that, but by sitting for the painting, it's interesting because it's like she's sealing her own fate.
Right.
And why would she do that? I mean, now that I'm realizing it, it's like she really must have already been in love with Miriam because she's like, I don't want you to get fired. I don't want you to be disgraced. So I will move forward with this huge life decision just to spare you the embarrassment of failing in this instance.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's like kind of like already this is all baked into everything.
It really is.
And I was going to say too, I've been excited to talk about this specifically. We haven't brought it up yet, so maybe now's the time.
Go for it.
I really want to know what you guys think about, she keeps seeing that ghastly image.
Over in the wedding dress?
Yeah, in the hallway. She keeps seeing that fucking Pepper's ghost effect.
So, at first I was fucking scared.
Yeah.
It scared the shit out of me the
I thought
first
that was
time.
well done, actually.
It was well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't understand it.
No.
Yeah, after this myth is read and the painting is progressing and the women are continuing to fall in love, Miriam starts seeing, like you said, a ghastly, ghostly image of Heloise at nighttime.
Yeah.
Whenever she sees a dark doorway, this ghostly image of Heloise shows up and then fades away. It's an allegory for Eurydice. The Orpheus turned back and saw his love, and by seeing her, she descends backwards into hell.
Interesting.
She's personifying that in hell. She's realizing I can't be with hell. I'm going to lose her soon. She's imagining herself as Orpheus. By the way, Orpheus in Greek mythology, he's not a soldier. He's not a warrior. He plays a harp. He's a musician. He's an artist.
Right. Oh.
Miriam is an artist.
Yeah.
Heloise is the love that is dead, that should not be alive, but there's this small window where it almost comes to life, but she knows, like Eurydice, this is a doomed romance, and this romance is doomed to die, and I think she's just imagining that.
Because she's in a wedding dress, right? Like,
That's we found out later. I didn't know what that was at first.
It's a white gown. It looks very ghostly. Woman in white is a classic ghost motif.
Yeah.
La Llorona, and there's a woman in white ghost mythology for pretty much every like major culture all over the world. So it's really like distinct symbolism of this relationship is a ghost. It's half dead already. You're experiencing it, but it's not alive.
Yeah. Again, that kind of looming doom around everything. I just feel like it's all tied in. It's funny. I haven't seen. I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie Phantom Thread.
No,
but I haven't seen it since it came out. I feel like there's something like that in that too.
Well, I think I know what your next pick is going to be.
Sees that same image. I feel, but I could be remembering that wrong. Anyway.
Yeah. The ghost thing, it didn't occur to me until later on. Even when you see Heloise actually wearing the wedding dress, her mother eventually does return. Let's fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
The two of them kiss. The two of them fall in love. They have like a torrid romantic affair, sleeping with each other, having a full romance in just the remaining 5 days. It's kind of beautiful. They talk about like, I wish we didn't waste so much time to express these feelings for each other.
Right.
They also help Sophie with her pregnancy, and they take her to the convent. I think that's what it is.
I have no idea. I couldn't figure out.
It almost seemed like a witch's coven.
It did.
There's a bonfire out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a bunch of women there, and they are working with Sophie to help her with her pregnancy. And this is the scene where Heloise is standing by a fire, and her dress catches fire. which will be the basis for the painting that we saw at the beginning of the movie, Portrait of a Woman on Fire. It is really cool because she's standing behind the flames. She looks like she's on fire. It was a very like haunting image.
Yeah.
Her dress catches fire and she doesn't even react to it.
Which is the coolest part. If she would have freaked out, but she doesn't. She just stands there and let it burn. She doesn't give a fuck. It was so badass, I thought. It looked so cool visually.
It almost reminds me of like a Buddhist self-immolation when they, the Buddhists would light themselves on fire. And it was, that is the ultimate form of protest for those Buddhists is I'm being denied control over my life. So I'm going to show you the ultimate control over my life. I'm going to sit here and light myself on fire and I'm not going to react to it. I'm going to control my emotions and control myself while I destroy myself. Mm-hmm. That's what I think she was trying to do in that moment, or that's what the filmmaker was implying in that moment. But luckily she's saved because some women rush over and put the fire out on her. But like super badass.
Yeah, it's very cool.
For somebody to have that level of just, I mean, I don't like, the idea of people ending it for themselves. That's not what I think is so cool in this part, but just the self-determination of I'm going to choose my own way no matter what. Mm-hmm. If you reduce my options, I will still make my own choice no matter what.
And I thought, I don't think the dress caught on fire on purpose. It just did. And she's like, well, I'm here and I don't want to stop this because I don't, I don't
think she did it on purpose. Yeah. Which again is like, things are happening to her against her will, but she is remaining
herself
strong. Yeah, she's remaining true to herself no matter what.
Right.
Which to me is like why I like this movie so much. It's like these are powerful statements. These are powerful ideas in a very quiet, subtle, slow burn movie. Like they let you kind of figure this stuff all out for yourself. Some people might be confused watching this movie, be like, why the fuck is she not trying to stop, drop, and roll, Yeah. But you have to pause and think about well, there's more going on here than what's on the surface level. Like there's a lot of deep stuff that's below surface level that you kind of have to infer. So they fall in love, and I think the last most important part of this movie, the note of this movie, is like you said, when their time is almost up, Miriam is doing a personal portrait for Eloise of her so she could keep it forever. And Eloise says, you have a portrait of me, but I'm not going to have a portrait of you. And she says, give me that book that we've been reading and tell me a page. She goes, page 28. She goes, okay. And she draws a self-portrait of herself on page 28. And then their time comes to an end, right? Am I missing anything?
No, I mean,
any other important parts?
They go to that weird hut to have the abortion, which was...
The abortion hut.
The abortion hut. And then, she later paints. They recreate that painting. She paints the abortion happening. I'm not quite sure why they did that.
Yeah. I think that they go to a midwife to do the abortion, and then they want to recreate the abortion for the painting. I think this movie really is a message about women's control over their own lives.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that an act of rebellion or?
I don't think it's an act of rebellion. I think it's an act of being true to yourself.
Yeah,
and she does not want to have this baby, and they want. I mean, Miriam finds that to be a powerful moment. I mean, it's a stark contrast when Sophie is getting an abortion and there's a baby basically crawling all over
that
her
was wild
while it's happening. The duality of that, it was kind of heartbreaking. It's just a powerful image. And, I think that in modern day American society, there's so much controversy and discussion about abortion rights. And this movie really kind of hits home how much it affects women, their life, and us, we up here, men, we fail to grasp often the significance of that situation.
Yeah. The mercy that they're at.
Me personally, I think guys should stay out of it. I don't care what your religious view is. This whole movie speaks to what I believe is that people should choose for themselves. People should have the right to decide for themselves how their life is going to turn out. You know better than anyone else what will make you happy, right? Somebody can't tell you what's going to make you happy or what's going to make your life the best life it can be. That's up for you to fucking decide. And so I feel like that is why they're capturing that moment and putting so much significance on it, because this movie is about women having self-determination in a world that does not want to allow them to have self-determination.
Yeah.
So
See, I disagree. It should be up to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's where, agree to disagree kind of thing.
Rocco's starting his political campaign for president this year.
I just didn't want to do a woke episode. I just feel like,
thank you.
it went that way.
You're the most obsessed about, well, you bringing it up.
Yeah. I didn't this episode at all. Till now I saved it.
You did bring it up though.
But anyway, yeah, agree with all that.
I think that, there are times, like, as the viewer, you don't want the mom to come back. You're like you want time to stand still for them. Then when the mom comes back, you see how things instantly change, and it's hard. It's a hard, like, goodbye. Like, it's not. And then when the mom, like, gets her that surprise wedding dress or whatever, and it's like, she knows her fucking kid doesn't want this wedding dress and does not want to get married, but she doesn't give a fuck. Like, she just is putting her through this.
And the wedding dress is the dress from the ghostly vision.
Right.
So it's like, this is what you're going to wear to die. In a way, that's like the symbolism of it. Like, this is your dress that you will descend into the underworld wearing, in Miriam's mind. They also kind of have a fight, and they talk about, like, are you angry at me that I'm getting married? And yeah, they kind of touch on, like, you should stand up for yourself. And she's like, do you really expect me to do that? I'm here with you now. Isn't this me standing up for myself, like exploring this relationship with you? And yeah, you just know this movie, honestly, I can see why it's so highly regarded with critics, because it's kind of like a modern day Romeo and Juliet.
I definitely felt that.
It's like a tragic love story, and you want them to be together, but it's fucking impossible. That's not an option.
In the same way that Romeo and Juliet literally starts with, like, yo, these two are going to die, you kind of feel like their own doom is already here. Like,
it's baked in.
So, yeah.
They can't escape their fate.
I mean, this does start with that, her talking about the picture of her on fire, like that in the art class. Like, it kind of does tell you this isn't going to work out. This isn't going to work.
Yeah, it's two lovers doomed from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, her mom comes back and she sees the painting, and now the new painting, it's the same painting, but I thought it was better.
Me too.
I thought it was, and maybe
it
it's
captured
because,
a little bit more.
Maybe because we just, we're programmed by the movie and the narrative, like, yeah, it is better. But I don't know, it just felt like it was more, hey, kudos to that artist who was there, because I felt like there was a subtle difference between those paintings, even though they're extremely similar. It's like, yeah, this one captures the essence. Maybe we're just saying that. Maybe it's placebo effect. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's pretty much it. Then it cuts back to the art class.
Yeah.
And it's like, yep. And then I went away and I didn't, that was the end of it. And they say there were 2 more times that I saw her in my life. And it cuts to a little bit after this experience together. She's in an art gallery, and she's standing by a painting of Orpheus and Eurydice. And this guy comes up to comment on it, and he's like, oh, I love your father's painting. We often see this moment of this story illustrated, but it's always either before he looks back or after he looks back. This is the moment that they are looking at each other, and it's like a last goodbye. That for me is when it clicked, like, oh, that's who Heloise was in all of those doorways. When I saw because she's painted exactly how Heloise looked in that dress. And again, she says, like, yeah, it's my painting. I submitted it under my father's name because they wouldn't let me in here, but it's actually mine. And he's like, oh, well done. And then at the art gallery, she is looking at the paintings, and she sees a different painting of Eloise painted by a different artist. And now there's a child in the painting too, a young girl. And it was a little heartbreaking, because you're like, oh, she moved on. She has a kid now. Like, again, like if, you know, a lot of people out there can relate to, you had this relationship in the past that was super significant. And sometimes you find out that that person who you loved so much has moved on with their life and they're not even talking to you anymore. And it's just kind of heartbreaking because you're like, what could have been if it was us? So it's so sad. And in the painting, she's holding a book and her finger has a page marked and it's page 28.
Yeah. Which I got the chills when I saw that. I was like, oh, fuck. I really like that.
So, like, yeah, haunting. It gave me the chills, too, because it's like, the passion still burns. After all of these years, she never forgot you. Mm-hmm. And then she says that was the first time. And then the last time I saw her, and it cuts to an opera house, and Miriam's sitting in the balcony, and across the opera on the opposite balcony, Eloise is moving to the front of the balcony. She says she didn't see me. And the final scene of the movie is Eloise takes a front row seat on the balcony for the opera, and it's Vivaldi's Summer that they're playing. And it's a slow push-in on her as the music just plays, and you just see her trying to hold back her emotion, but tears start streaming down her face. This gave me chills.
Yeah, me too.
And this was the final image of the movie. The movie ends on this scene.
It was like a 2-minute shot. Like that one shot was just like a nonstop cut. It was pushing in. It was wild.
Yeah, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
And I took away from this, from when it was all said and done, it was like, yeah, dude, sometimes like your life can be fucking defined by like one good week. You know, one good week. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is like this woman fell in love for 5 days and her passion burns on till the end of time.
And I was not ready for the movie to be over. This is the time where it's like, give me another hour of them getting back together. I'd watch it. Like it honestly reminds me too, like, why didn't she find her? Why didn't she leave her seat and go get her? Or like, why didn't, but then as you mentioned earlier, maybe she does want to hold that memory of that week and doesn't want to talk to her now because things have changed and things are different. Like maybe that's her, you know, looking back to keep that memory preserved.
I think just knowing that Eloise loves her and will always love her is enough. Like, I know we can't be together, but I know you love me deeply.
Right.
From afar, after all these years, after all this distance, you're still thinking of me, and that is enough. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Who is the Portrait of a Lady on Fire? Is it Eloise in the actual painting getting burned, or is it this movie of Miriam, you know, having this love? Either of them could be the subject of the movie itself. Is a portrait of a lady on fire, of Miriam burning with a passion and a desire for the lover that she can't have. So that's basically the plot right there.
Yeah, that's it. Derek, what'd you think of it?
I mean, any other like things you want to add, or should we just get into shakers?
I was just gonna say, that ending was a fucking 10 out of 10 for me. That was that push in was like, rose the movie a point for me. I loved how it ended. I keep fucking mixing up like I said, did not know their names even till now. I'm like, I feel like 80 times during this episode I've mixed up Marianne and fucking Eloise as the other. Anyway, so I apologize if I did that 8 times during this episode. But yeah, anyway, whoever was watching whoever, I love that ending.
Yeah, it was good. This is one of those movies where when it's over, I'm kind of like, meh, okay. And then my day goes on and I just keep thinking about it, you know? And I'm like, yeah, that was pretty deep. Yeah. Holy shit, that was fucking relatable, you know? And I just keep like, you know, just thinking about like, I'm pretty sure I got everything. I'm like, well, actually, maybe it's a lot deeper than I thought. And you just keep thinking about it. And I love movies like that. So, you know, when I was watching this movie, I was like, okay, it's pretty. They say this is a masterpiece. It's kind of slow. It's kind of quiet. Maybe 2 stars. Maybe. And I think about it more. I was like, you know what? This is a solid movie. 3 stars. And then I was coming in here being like, you know what? This might be a 4-star movie. And then I'm here now and I'm like, is this a 5-star film? You know, this is, the more I think about it, the more I like it.
Yeah, when I like I said before, I watched it on Hulu and I was like, huh, all right. And then like months later, Criterion put out like a really fancy Blu-ray package of it, and I never thought I would have bought that, but I bought it. I was like, yeah, I want to own that.
Yeah.
It's got all the artwork in it and stuff.
So I ended up really liking this movie. I am going to give it 4 out of 5. For me personally, it's great. Yeah, I think I might even give it 4.5 out of 5, simply because I don't know if I should even deduct a point from it because it's not like my kind of movie.
This is where I'm sitting with it too.
Yeah, it's like I want to rate it really high, but I'm like I'm not going to say it's the perfect movie for me, but it is very close to a perfect movie, and for other people it is a perfect movie. But I'm going to stick with unofficially a 4.5, but I don't do half, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I that's where I sit with it, where I want to give. Yeah, there is part of me that wants to give it a 5. And I'm not, because I feel like when I give a movie a 5, this is like, yo, I'm going to watch this fucking movie 100 times a day until I die, like kind of thing. I'm not going to do that with this, but that's not a mark against the movie. That's not, I don't know if I'm willing to engage with this at that level, I guess. But that's not a mark against, that's not their fault. I basically sit in the same place as you. I'm going to give it a 4. But it's almost a 5. I, again, feel like I discovered a genre that I love here, which is like just letting me exist with these feelings. This long, quiet, again, it's a balancing act. If you can nail that, you can have a really effective kind of piece like this. And I thought they did such a wonderful job letting it speak for itself, letting you connect with it on your own terms. And I thought it was great. I'm going to stick with the 4.
Cool. Yeah, for me, it really started, it's so weird because it started so low, and then by the end, it kept climbing, and I'm going to give it a 5. I fucking loved it.
Wow.
I thought it was a beautiful story. They would never make a sequel, but if they did, I would be happy to see what happens with these characters. I want to know more.
Portrait of Ladies on Fire.
I loved it,
and I thought Lady Underwater.
I thought it was tragic and beautiful, and it really captured the honeymoon phase that I said before of relationships so well. And I didn't understand the armpit thing when she put the drugs in her armpit. That was weird. But, I'm not going to dock it for that. That was
for me, that is what made me think that those were like a convent of witches that they went to hang out with.
Yeah.
Because, there's this theory that we talk about witches flying on a broom. But some people think that the broom would be lubed up with some sort of salve or paste that was made from a plant concoction, and that women could actually straddle it and it would enter their body.
It would absorb.
It would absorb through their groin, and flying was like being high, like experiencing a drug trip. So she says, like, they say this will make you fly, and they put it in the armpits because, that's certain parts of your body you can absorb chemicals through. So
well, now I get it.
Yeah. So now
that's why she was rubbing it into her armpits.
Yeah.
Because that was a weird scene too. I'm like, what is she doing? That was a quick that cut. I was like, what am I looking at? Anyways, 5. I thought it was a beautiful story. Wow. And I really liked it. I am shocked by myself saying that, but definitely a 5 for me. And like you said, Rocco, I won't watch this every day, but I think Schindler's List is a 5, and I'm not gonna see that every day. Probably never see it again, but I acknowledge it's a fantastic movie. So cool. Well, that's Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
It's really hard. It's just it's hard. It's like it's not even a question of will I watch this every day. It's like I know what you mean, Derek. It's like it's not my kind of movie that I normally gravitate to, but that doesn't take in any way away
to
from
me.
its
It's even more
excellence.
impressive that it got us.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, and that in itself makes me want to give it a 5.
Yeah,
but 4,
yeah, I mean
4.5 maybe.
I really do consider it like a modern day Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
But some people out there don't want to watch Shakespeare. Some people out there want to watch Mandalorian and reality TV.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, yeah, I think that, I don't know. I'm sure like as time goes on, I probably will wish I gave this movie a higher score because it is like all my favorite movies I actually think suck when I first watched them.
Yeah.
And then,
Same here.
and then as time goes on, I really reflect on them and I go, what sucked about it?
Yeah.
Really, like what it just it didn't give me what I expected from a conventional movie, but is that a problem? You
Yeah.
know, that they did things differently and succeeded by doing things differently?
Yeah. I'm happy I've had this feeling kind of twice now. Well, I mean, again, I had seen this before, so I kind of had already gone through that phase, you know, whenever it was that I saw it. But, you know, just recently with Tar, I kind of feel like I went through the same thing. And I'm just like, what was that? And then it was just every day since.
And same actress
like,
in both. She has this.
Yeah. We need, what was the actress's name? Noemi Merlant.
Yeah.
Merlant? I don't know.
Yeah.
However you say it. The Noemi effect. It's real.
A 4 out of 5 is not a bad review.
No.
And I think for me, it's a 5 out of 5 movie is I know it's a 5 out of 5 coming out the gate. And this movie, I had to reflect on it. So like I said, ask me a couple years from now, I might rate it higher after I've had time to process it. But 4 out of 5 is not a bad review.
No.
At all. I think it's a wonderful movie.
Doesn't that suck though? When video games come out, people do that all the time. They're like, you gave it 8 out of 10? That's bullshit. It's like, that's a great score. That's good. But people think everything should be a 10. It can't be like that, guys.
Well, that's why I am hesitant to give it a 5 out of 5 because I don't usually like to do absolutes. If I have to really fucking hate a movie for it to be a 0. I'm not just gonna be like, some people might like it, but I don't. 0.
And that's why I think you need to kind of reevaluate the Snyderverse a little bit. You know, I think you maybe take another look.
And I want to be a little stingy with my 5s. I want to be conservative with the films.
Yeah.
You know, my collection of 5-star films, I don't want it to be too vast.
Yeah, I think I've done it 4 or 5 times. Not that many.
I think I've given more probably than anyone. I think because I don't know. There's some things that just fucking please me, man.
Yeah.
and I don't even, and I can't, there's certain things that trip certain things in me where I'm like, I'm not seeing the flaws, you know, and I'm just eating it like candy. So I think I've probably been the most generous with that, but I hear you.
So it's my pick, and I didn't have a movie prepared for this for some reason. I didn't think it was my pick, and I realize now that it is. It is
your pick?
Yeah, didn't you do Escape from New York?
Yeah.
Is it your pick, Rocco?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Oh, because I was gonna bullshit
the whole time
something.
I'm like, hey, if you want,
I was gonna just wing something out there, but I'm glad. Okay, thank God. Rocco, what do we got?
Well, you guys know I love to pick a great movie that has makeup effects, transforming someone into, I love a great, I was going to say creature movie, but that sounds a little offensive for what I'm going to pick.
Okay.
Because this is a movie about a whale. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I guess there's a whale in it. The Whale. It's finally, you can rent it now.
You can rent
we were
it.
going to pick it before.
Okay.
And you couldn't, it wasn't easily attainable. Now it is. You can watch
okay,
it. You can
so
rent
now
it
it's The Whale.
So now we're going to pick The Whale.
Or we're going to watch Tommy Boy 2.
Apparently there's some good makeup effects in it. I haven't seen it. Brendan Fraser won for it. I want to see why.
All right.
I bet he's not that great.
We'll see you next week
Get to the bottom of it.
for The Whale.
See ya.
Goodbye.